Now, it's setting up live. All right, let's see. Nope, still not. Still not here. Yeah, we're still not doing our thing yet. Okay. Hello? Nope. All right, let's see. Nope, still not. Still not here. Yeah, we're still not doing our thing yet. Okay. Okay. Well, I have to go back to Zoom because this is hello? No. Hold on. All right, let's see. Nope, still not. Okay. Still not here. Yeah, we're still not doing our thing yet. Okay. Okay. Well, I have to go back to Zoom because this is hello? No. Hold on. All right. Back. Jeez Louise. Okay, if any of you are listening, Jayne, just be patient and don't you dare laugh at me. I'm running into a few little difficulties, okay? Well, I have to go back to Zoom because this is hello? No, hold on. The time lag is doing me in, okay? Jeez Louise.
Turn off one or the other.
Listening. Jayne, just be patient and don't you dare laugh at me. I'm running into a few little difficulties, okay? Well, I have to go back to Zoom because this is hello? No, hold on. The time lag is doing me in, okay?
Turn off one or the other.
Listening. I can't, I'm trying
Just
to.
be patient and don't you dare laugh at me.
I'm trying to turn something off.
Okay?
Stop it. Oh, you're shameless.
This is
Oh.
hold on.
The time lag is doing me in, okay? Okay.
Turn off one or the other.
I can't, I'm trying to. I'm trying to turn something off.
This is so typical.
Everybody, I'm starting all over again. Don't you dare go anywhere. And no comments. The time lag is doing me in. Jeez Louise. Okay. Hold on.
Just Zoom, like you said.
I'm good. That was a catastrophe.
What could possibly go wrong? I said, it's Susan Elizabeth Phillips. What
could possibly go wrong? So I'm hearing this 20-second lag in everything. You know what? This is just too stressful. We're done. I'm out.
Well, that means I can talk. And I would just like to say that I'm trying to sell a book here.
You're not the only one.
Dueling authors and yeah. Do you have a dog in yours? I bet you don't have a dog in yours.
No, but I got a baby and I got poop.
Dang. Well, you never want to go on after dogs and babies, so
no,
I guess
that's true.
I guess we're even.
You're not allowed to talk about your book yet because I've got questions for you first. By the
like
way,
my hair. You want to know about my hair, don't you? Because you egged me on to buy the hair curler device, didn't you? It was all your idea, wasn't it? Yes.
Cool. It's
what? Go ahead, say it. You're the one who started this.
It has a life of its own.
This is as bad as when we used to do the Susan and Jayne show at
know it at RWA. So now, but tell me this. The color still looks good. Are you coloring it yourself?
Yeah, I made a stab at it.
It looks really good. Are you happy with what you've gotten?
Yeah, actually pretty, considering I have absolutely no idea what I was doing. I mean, you know, basically just following directions.
I mean, it looks shiny and good. And I think you should save yourself some money and send it to me.
No. As soon as I can get out of here, I'm heading for the hair salon. Yeah. I will never take a stylist for granted again.
Oh, I know. Don't we all feel like that way?
What a talent. And when you lose it, you don't know what you got till it's gone. Oh my goodness.
We haven't gotten to the point yet, but we're getting close where I'm going to have to cut Mr. Bill's hair. What's Frank doing?
Well, his hair is so short that I just use clippers. We bought him off a pair of clippers and you set them on number 1, 2, or 3. You just pick a number and zoop. Great. Works great.
when I talk to Bill about this clipper thing, it's the zoop part that it seems to be terrifying him.
Once it's gone, it's gone.
So I was trying to think, how long have we been friends? Do you have any clue?
No.
We met through Linda Barlow, both friends of hers.
Yeah.
That must have been in the 90s or something.
Yeah, I guess so. The other century.
Yeah. We've been through a lot together. You and for those of you out there, Jayne and I both had mothers, elderly mothers that we were caring for. And oh my gosh, there were so many days when I would call Jayne. You pulled me through that because mother died when she was 101 and 6 months. And I used to go to you.
You had a tough time there. It was not an easy death.
No, it wasn't. It took a long time. But you've heard this story, Jayne, but my favorite story is it's just me and my sister. And my sister was not close at all. She was in a different geographical location, so it fell to me. And anytime I would call her, she always listened. And one time I'm calling her, and something bad had happened. And she said, "Oh, Susan, I'm so sorry. And I'm so glad it's not me." That was one of my favorites. Oh, so I got a couple questions for you. Were you, I think I've got to know this answer. As a matter of fact, I think I know a couple of these answers, but were you always a reader? What are your early reading memories?
Horse books and Nancy Drew, my formative books.
So that would have been second, third, fourth grade, right about the time you were learning to read, right?
Well, for the horse books, yeah. Nancy Drew, I think of as more like fourth grade. I don't know why, but I sort of fell into them at fourth grade. Maybe that's when I discovered them. And a little later on, I got into science fiction, but it was that other kind of science fiction. It was the adventure science fiction. It was Andre Norton and the early Robert Heinlein, before he got philosophical. And I just loved mysteries, and I loved that paranormal. We didn't have a word for it at the time. We just called it all science fiction, but I really loved the psychic vibe. And that's what I've always loved working with. And it's there from some of my earliest books. You've never gone that route. There's a
little bit of that in my breathing room book. There's sort of a little mystical overtone, but no, I never have. And I think it's because it was always scary to me. You plunged into it, but it was scary to me because, I like to control everything. And that was something like that couldn't be controlled, I think.
The woo-woo factor. Yeah.
My therapist here.
Yeah. Well, my mom was into the psychic yoga thing before it was cool.
Hey, I did not know that about her.
Yeah.
When did this? I don't know. Was being a writer part of your childhood dream, or is this something that happened by accident? What was that journey like for you?
The journey was get a job. I was kind of focused.
Your job was not writing. Your job was as a librarian, right?
Yeah. When I was heading for my earliest days, it was just, I knew I wanted a job I could support myself with. And I think that probably comes from having been the child of a divorce. And there's that knowledge that you really can't rely on somebody else. You have to be able to take care of yourself, and any kids if you have them, in worst case scenarios. So there was always that feeling that I'll get a job that I could support myself with. And I sort of fell into the library world. I mean, I loved it, but it wasn't like on my list, or I didn't even have a list, just sort of fell into it. But it turned out to be like the perfect career path for somebody whose interests are wide and scattered.
Mm-hmm.
Like every book is a new adventure because we're starting some new world.
Yep.
And we learn something new every time, and that's one of the reasons we write. And the library world is like that. It's you're constantly being exposed to new ideas and new things, new stories, new stuff. And so it really fits perfectly with the background. So
did you like write short stories or anything when you were a little, or you just started writing a book as an adult?
I just started writing. Yeah. I think you start writing what you read. I think you're drawn to write what you read, if you're especially in popular fiction. So I was reading a lot of romantic suspense, and that's what I tried to write. So It's always been my core story.
Was your the first thing you write, was it something that actually sold or was it experimental? The Marines are flying over. Hi, guys.
Daughter of a Marine, say hi.
I'm near Camp Pendleton. This is why I get a lot of
Yeah, that's where my father was stationed. Yeah.
So yeah, did you sell the first thing you wrote, or was it experimental? I don't know these things about you.
No, it took me 6 years to get published. That was back in the day before we had, you know, the option of publishing online on our, you know, self-publishing. It just wasn't available. And so it was New York or nothing. And it took me 6 years to break into New York. And I think actually what happened is there was just, as you will recall, there was a time in New York publishing when all of a sudden every publisher in town wanted romance and women's fiction and all the stuff they had been rejecting for years. They suddenly wanted it, and we were there during that golden moment. So.
We sure were. It took me 3 weeks to sell my first book. Just saying.
6 years, 3 weeks. You know, who's counting?
Oh, wow. Yeah, and I remember the old Dell Candlelight Ecstasy series.
Yeah, that was
one of the lead. It was you and Sandra Brown and somebody else, I think, who were the lead authors in that first time around.
Yeah, I've forgotten the name.
That was the first of your books I read. Was that Candlelight Ecstasy? Yeah.
Gentle Pirate. Yeah, I remember it well. Yeah. They actually had pretty decent covers for the time and the period and everything. Those ecstasy covers were kind of classy.
Yeah, they really were. So you have to tell us about the name things for people who do not know how schizophrenic you are and how many names you write under and how that whole mess happened.
Well, I would just like to start out by saying it wasn't the plan at the start. There wasn't a plan at the start. I would also like to add that I do not recommend it for any author starting out today. It is a very bad decision, probably the worst career decision I ever made. But I didn't do it deliberately. I did it because I changed. There were always business reasons. I had changed publishers. One publisher tied up. I managed to, at one point, actually sign away my birth name. That was before I thought I needed an agent.
Right, yeah.
So I had to have another name for the next house, and it kind of went like that. And then there came a point where I ended up with 3 names after multiple names. And at that point, I decided, well, since they all have an audience, I'll let them sit with the genre that they are, like the historicals or Amanda Quick, which is...
Oh, for Lord's sake, we're not there yet.
Amanda Quick. And then I used my married name, Jayne Ann Krentz, for contemporary romantic suspense, and then Jane Castle, which is my birth name, and I did finally get it back, and that's for the futuristics and the.
Jane Castle is the coolest name ever. You were so lucky with that one.
That was what I was going to start out with, but boy,
do you feel like your readers float? I want to talk about Jayne Ann Krentz and Amanda Quick specifically. Do you feel like your readers float back and forth between those 2 names, or do they seem to gravitate toward one or the other?
Some do. Some will read me under all 3 names, but by a large number don't. They want a particular fictional world, a particular fictional landscape. Perhaps for them, the stories are only really compelling when they're set in the historical setting. I've got others who prefer the futuristic setting, and then I've got others who will only read me as Krentz in the contemporary setting. And I actually do understand that. I'm kind of the same way. You know, there's a million different kinds of mysteries out there, but we don't read across all. Those of us who love mystery and suspense, people who love British police procedurals, for example, very often have no interest whatsoever in the American style police procedural.
Right.
And I actually know why.
Tell us.
Okay. Well, the difference between the American police procedural and the British police procedural is that in the British, it's hard to say this, British police procedural, the cops are the good guys. That dirty cop story, that dark noir dirty cop story is very much an American invention. And
I didn't think about that, but you're right.
It's very cultural. And I find that quite fascinating. So anyhow, that's a sideline. I'm just to say that just because you like a particular genre doesn't mean you like all the fictional settings.
Right. But I really think that at this point, having those three names really has benefited you, because you do have these three audiences, and some of them will cross over, and some are looking for a specific kind of book. And it also gives you some variety. I mean, you've been writing when was your first book published?
1980.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
it actually, little factoid, it actually carries a 1979 copyright date, because when I turned in the manuscript, they copyrighted it, and that was like November.
Oh, and then the book came out. Yeah.
It came out later.
But that's a lot of books, and you do get to play a little bit and change from one world to another. So Jayne Ann Krentz's world, this is more, right now, it's romantic suspense, I'd say with a capital S, although you've got that relationship winding all the way through it. Is that fair?
That's my core story. It's two people who have to learn to trust each other in order to survive. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. And I will say that going back and forth between my three fictional landscapes has been very refreshing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I'm done with the 1930s world now, it's exciting to go do the futuristic, or it's exciting to go, it refreshes everything, it resets everything. And there are so many plot ideas that it won't work in one world or the other. So I get new plot ideas.
Let's talk about Amanda. Amanda Quick has had quite a journey. Talk a little bit about Amanda's career, where she started out and where she is now, this whole arc from those beginning books to the Burning Cove series.
All right. Well, when I decided to write historical romance, I went back to my roots with Georgette Heyer, because that was the only thing I'd ever read that was historical romance. I didn't know any of the other names. So I went back to Georgette Heyer, and I realized the Regency world really fit my kind of characters because of the snappy dialogue and the kind of adventurous women that she wrote about, and all the handsome dukes and earls and stuff like that.
Plus the restrictions of that society that gave you so much opportunity for conflict.
Yep, and it's just built in. So, so it was fun to work with. As time moved on, it is a small world in a sense. I mean, after a while, all the ballrooms look alike, all the gowns look alike, as to the writer, And it's a great world, and I love it. I will always love it. But I wanted different kinds of plots and different kinds of conflicts. And the world changed so much between the Regency era and the late Victorian era that there was a whole new environment to investigate there that had lots of new plot ideas and things. And then there came a time after the late Victorian era when I really seriously considered giving up the Amanda Quick name. I just didn't have any more stories that compelled me, at least for a while. And
now, so clarify, about how many do you think you wrote of that Regency period? Because that was where readers were introduced to Amanda and fell in love with her.
Probably about 20 books, yeah.
And then when you went into the late Victorian period,
probably another 20 books. That may be my limit. I don't know.
Yeah. And then I remember when you were going to kill Amanda off, and I remember some of your friends, whose name shall not be mentioned, saying, "Don't you dare."
That would be the same friends who said, "Oh, you can do your own hair, Jayne."
So then I love the whole idea of how you took Amanda to the next level here. So where was your head going?
Well, I was ready to walk away from that name. I thought, well, I've already got the other two. I've got the Jane Castle name and the Jayne Krentz name. That's enough. But I had a chat with my editor, and she's a real film buff. And she said, well, what about the 1930s? And as soon as she said that, I thought, yeah, in a way, it's like the Regency period. It's got a wild side to it. It's got that great dialogue. We know it because of the movies. Everybody, even the youngest people today, young movie buffs, they know those golden age films. They know that they can name actors, for crying out loud, from that era, which is what, 70 years ago, 80 years ago, whatever. I don't do math. But the fact that those names still resonate, like Cary Grant and so on, tells you something about the fact that they've become part of our culture in a really, really important way.
Mhm.
And so as soon as she suggested the 1930s, I jumped on it. I said, yeah, that would be fun. That I could do. And I'm having a great time with it. So.
Oh, I know you are, and it's evident in the books. So we have, this is the fourth book in that series. Close Up is the fourth book. And I've read all of these books except Close Up. I've just started it and I love it. This is a sidebar, but one of the things, those of you out there who are thinking about writing a book, look at the way Jayne begins her books. She will plunge you right into the action. There's not a long backstory. There's not a long explanation. You're immediately plunged into the action. And I can see you're doing it in Close Up, and when you did it in Tightrope, holy cow.
Well, don't you do yours the same way? Don't you think we start the books where we are suddenly interested? I mean, we need
that. I don't plunge in as quickly as you do. You're my role model on that, and I do keep trying to work on that. Some books I'm happier with than others with that, being able to plunge into the action, but you're real consistent about that. And by the way, everybody's got to read Close Up, but you also have to read Tightrope. That trapeze artist, that beginning scene is a killer. So talk about the whole photography thing, that the heroine is a photographer, a crime photographer in Close Up, right?
Right.
How'd you settle on that?
Well, the photography thing was just an interesting part of that world. I mean, everybody who's seen those old movies kind of knows that scene where the kind of the photographers from the newspapers all of a sudden show up to shoot the dead body. They've got these big clunky cameras and flash bulbs are dazzling, and then when the bulbs fall out and they get crunched underfoot when they're walking around trying to get the next shot, and it's all got to happen with it's just, and then they've got to rush off to get the film developed, and it was just kind of a wild world to wait, and a tough way to make a living, because you didn't get a lot, even if you sold a front page photo or caught a picture of a movie star in the wrong place at the wrong time, a scandalous shot, you still had to sell it. And we're talking like $5, $10, $20, even for a really important, a picture that would sell magazines or newspapers. So it was a tough way to make a living, and it didn't get a lot of respect. At the same time that photography was coming into its own as a kind of a historical record, if you will, a snapshot of real life in the real time, there was another side to the business that wanted it to be taken as high art, and they wanted it to be respected as a true art form. And it's never been able to really do that. It's still very controversial, and it's been that way since the invention of the camera, whether or not photography should be taken as art. And so the bottom line for my heroine is that she's trying to make it as an artistic photographer. But if the galleries find out about her crime work, her crime scene work, her career's dead on arrival before she even gets going. So at the crime scene where she spots the clue that leads to the killer and all that, she's putting her own career at risk. And then just to complicate things, she winds up on an assassin's hit list. So
as one does.
These things happen, especially in 1930s Hollywood.
Tell us about the hero a little bit. Nick, right?
Yes. And he's got a psychic vibe.
Yeah.
Bird, heard the birds. Yeah, he's got a psychic vibe in that he sees crime scenes in ways that other people don't. He sees things that other people don't pick up at crime scenes, but he pays a heavy price for it because of his the nightmares that go along with it. Is that bird going to get you? Or is that why you're watching that? I see you looking up at that bird.
Huge freight train is going by.
Oh, okay.
So I missed. You know, Jayne, it's like when I'm with you, what can go wrong is going to go wrong. I gotta go inside. I mean, that train is just, we're gonna go in my bedroom for a minute here.
I don't hear it. I hear the
it's a long one. Well, I muted myself right away when it happened.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see.
Yeah. So how many books do you see in this series?
I don't know. I think like the other two worlds that I've explored, the other three worlds, I'll do it as long as I've got fun stories that I want to tell. But I think it's got a long lifespan ahead of it, simply because it turns out not a lot of people in our genres are working in the 1930s. So there's a lot of undiscovered territory out there. And it's a really fascinating period of time. And I should make it clear that my 1930s is the fantasy, mythical California, the golden California. It's not the Depression and the Dust Bowl. And
right.
Yeah. You know, California was both real and mythical at the time. And I think it's always had that kind of special status. And as long as it's got that mythical side, that's the side I'll be working with.
So the heroine in Close Up has these sort of extrasensory powers, right?
She's got a vision too. Because of the way she looks through a camera lens, she has an artist's vision. So it's not really psychic. The hero has the psychic.
The hero has the psychic vision, but hers is just, it seems like just at the very beginning, she's sensing extra things going on.
I think her vision as an artist enables her to understand his vision as a psychic. She doesn't take it the same way other people do who see him as maybe crazy.
Yeah.
She gets it.
Well, okay, the train's gone by, that crisis is averted. So here's what I really, really love about your books. I love a suspense plot that doesn't get grisly. And you really don't. I mean, you write some scary scenes, but it's not, we don't have sadism in them. No. Or if there's sadism, it's happened off screen. And I really, really enjoy that. The other thing, actually, number one that I love about your books is your heroes and heroines are smart. They don't do stupid things. That just drives me crazy.
I know, it drives most readers that we know crazy. They don't like their characters to do stupid things. It's bad. No. It's bad plotting that leads to that. It's when you get but you're the same way. Your characters always are coming out of some big change, some turn in their life that they need to reinvent themselves. And I do that too. I think we both start with characters that are in the process of reinvention or trying to salvage a career or trying to move on with their lives and I think you and I both are drawn to the dynamics of that, because I think in real life people do that their whole lives. If they're paying attention to life, they're constantly reinventing themselves. And that's there's endless dynamics there, endless.
Yes, that's true. And I also think, I think you respect your characters. And that's important to me, because you can kind of see it in books where the writer is just manipulating the characters at the expense of the characters to make things happen. And I think you and I both really try to make it all organic, whatever the characters are doing in terms of the plot. Do you know who the bad guy is at the beginning? I know the answer to this.
I sometimes I think I do, and I'll write toward that for a while and then realize it's not going to be him or her. I when you do your suspense oriented stuff, do you know going in?
The book I'm writing, in Dance Away with Me, I took a lot of blind turns figuring things out. And in the book I'm working on, which I'm not talking about yet, even though some blabbermouth said something about it, I'm not mentioning any name. Anyway, but the bad guy did change on me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've heard a lot of authors say that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I know people who write directly from a very detailed plot outline, and they're brilliant with it. You know, they can work like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Dance Away, your Dance Away with Me is out next month, right?
Dance Away with Me is coming out June 9th, and people can order it for pre-sale right now. And my little blurb is that this is the story. Jayne, you don't have your copy yet, but you've got one coming your way. This is the story of a midwife who is she's a young widow, and she's devastated by her loss. At the beginning of the book, we find her coming to this little town of Tempest, Tennessee, in a little cabin above the town. All she wants to be is left alone. She really wants to stay in bed and eat donuts and forget to shower. But of course, that's
quarantine life. Yeah,
not going to happen. And the hero is a very successful street artist named Ian Hamilton North IV, and that fourth is very important. And he's a street artist on the order of Banksy. So one of the things I really loved about this book was getting to research that whole area of street art. Fascinating. And I know I talked to you about it as I was working through it. That was a whole new area for me. And I think, don't you think as writers, when we can grab onto something new and different, grabbing onto this world of the 1930s, it gives us the juice to write well and to write good books.
Yes, I think it's because we're really writing them. We're exploring for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And in the story, we just have to hope that we can get enough people to want to explore this world with us.
And you sure have with this. I mean, I'm hearing fabulous things about this whole series and about Close Up from my readers. So it looks like you've got a home run with that, which is really, really good. And I'm not jealous, and I'm hoping I get the same home run with mine.
Well, it's going to fly. Dance Away with Me is going to fly. You said this book was a little different for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. In what way?
Well, I always try to hit that border. With you, it's that border between high suspense and romance and kind of walking that line. And with me, it's the walking the line between women's fiction and romance, because I want a satisfying, happy ending. But I love going into that world of women's fiction where you can explore characters more deeply and where you can have a larger cast of characters. I always like writing about families and community, and this book really did it. It's a book that's a real emotional journey, but I promise everybody, at least I love the ending. I hope everybody will. It's a real emotional journey, and it also is a book about the different ways we make families. So those are things that appeal to me. So hold up that cover finally that I haven't been letting you hold up. Yay! You have gotten the most gorgeous covers on that Burning Cove series.
I know. I'm thrilled with them. I think it's because the Art Deco look inspires the art department. It's something they kind of intuitively
new for them. Yeah. So what do you want to tell everybody about the book that we haven't already talked about? Is there anything I'm missing other than the fact that I cannot wait for this interview to be over so I can get back to my Kindle?
There's a dog in the story. There's a dog in the story. I just want him. And an assassin, and a psychic detective.
I can't wait to meet him, because I'm not at the point yet where I've met him. I'm at the crime scene right now.
Okay. and a lady photographer who's trying to hide her secret side. So what could go wrong?
Yeah, that's going to be a wonderful world to enter. Well, my friend, Miss Jayne, thanks for coming with us today.
Good to see you.
Everybody. Good to see you too. And you know what? Your hair looks adorable. So you just keep at it.
Well, as it gets longer, I'll be doing it more of it.
I know, all of us, right?
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for being with us. Thanks, Jayne. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.